My name is Helen Crawford. I'm 4 years old, a retired elementary school teacher living alone in a small seaside house in Florida, the very home my late husband Richard left behind when he passed. I spent my entire life giving to my family, pouring out savings, insurance, and the years of my old age that should have been peaceful. But one morning, as I opened my credit card statement, my heart stopped. Over $17,000 gone, spent on flowers, venues, and catering for a wedding I wasn't even invited to. My daughter, Madison, had been using my credit card as if it were her personal wallet. My son, Ethan, turned the blame back on me, saying I should be grateful for the chance to contribute to his sister's happiness. And the final blow, when I asked about the engagement dinner, Madison looked me straight in the eye and said, "Oh, Mom, that was yesterday. We didn't think you really needed to be there." In that moment, I realized it wasn't just my money that had been taken from me. It was my place in my own family's story. Before I tell you how I fought back, reclaimed my dignity, and found freedom I never expected, hit that subscribe button and tell me in the comments where you're listening from. Because what I'm about to share will make you understand one simple truth. Sometimes the only way to be truly loved is to finally learn how to say no, even to the very children you once gave everything for. The morning after that credit card statement nearly broke me, I found myself sitting at the kitchen table, staring at the ocean through the window Richard once loved so much. The waves rolled in steady and calm, mocking the storm that churned inside me. For years I believed that giving endlessly would somehow bind my family closer, but all it had done was turn me invisible. Now, with every itemized charge echoing in my mind, I knew I had a choice: stay silent and fade further, or finally confront the people who had learned to take without ever asking. I brewed a pot of coffee, my hands trembling as I measured out the grounds. The smell filled the kitchen, familiar and comforting, yet it couldn't quiet the ache in my chest. My phone buzzed again. A text from Madison Mom. "Don't forget, we still need groceries. Same list as usual. Thanks." Just like that, as if I were the hired help instead of the mother whose retirement she had just drained. I set the phone down carefully, almost afraid that if I touched it too hard, the bitterness inside me would shatter the screen. It wasn't just the money, though God knows that was enough to make any retiree panic. It was the way her words carried no trace of gratitude, no awareness of the damage she'd caused. My pension was modest, $2,800 a month, and after bills, I barely had $400 left to stretch. That inheritance from Richard's insurance was supposed to keep me afloat in emergencies, not bankroll a wedding designed to impress strangers. Then came the heavy sound of Ethan's footsteps, shaking the old wooden floors. He'd been living with me for 6 months after his divorce, promising it was temporary, but like every other arrangement in his life, temporary had morphed into permanent. "Mom." He called without stepping into the kitchen. "I need the car tonight. Rebecca and I are checking out that apartment in Riverside." His voice was casual, entitled, as if my house, my car, my very existence were extensions of his convenience. I forced my voice steady. "Ethan, can you come in here for a moment?" He appeared in the doorway, his dark hair messy, his jeans the very pair I'd bought him last Christmas. He didn't look at me with concern, only impatience. "What's up? I'm in a hurry." I slid the statement across the table toward him. "Did you know about this?" His eyes flicked down, then away, a tell I'd known since he was a boy sneaking cookies before dinner. "Know about what?" he asked, too quickly. "Madison charged $17,000 to my credit card." I said. The silence stretched between us before he shrugged. "Yeah, she mentioned it." "Mom, it's just money. You've got the house, your pension. You'll be fine. Just money." Words so dismissive they sliced deeper than any knife. My voice cracked as I said, "Ethan, that was my emergency fund. That was Richard's legacy." He leaned back against the doorframe, examining his nails. "She'll pay you back eventually. She's been so stressed about the wedding." Don't make this harder than it has to be." I stared at him, this grown man I had bandaged knees for, cheered through failures, supported through every mess of his own making. Now he stood in my kitchen, rent-free, brushing off the theft of my life savings. I asked suddenly, "And the engagement dinner, when was it?" Ethan froze, then shifted uncomfortably. "They, already had it. Just a small thing. You know how Madison is." The lie clung to the air between us, heavy and undeniable. My mind flooded with memories of other moments of exclusion. The birthday dinners I learned about through social media. The school recitals I missed because no one told me. The family photos I wasn't included in because you never like how you look in pictures. Mom. Each wound reopened at once, leaving me breathless. "I see," I whispered, folding the statement neatly. "And the wedding, will I be attending that?" He laughed softly, as if my question were absurd. "Of course you're invited, Mom. Don't be dramatic." Dramatic, as though asking for inclusion in my own daughter's life were some theatrical performance. The walls of the house seemed to close in on me, the ocean's steady rhythm outside mocking the chaos inside. Richard's chair by the window caught my eye, the place where he'd spent so many evenings reading, always making me feel like I was the most important person in the world. Without him, I'd let our children rewrite my worth into something transactional. "Keys are on the hook," I said finally. "Try to have the car back by midnight." Ethan grabbed them, already turning toward the door. For a fleeting second I thought he might stop, might notice the hurt in my voice. Instead he added, "Oh, and Rebecca's staying over tonight. We'll try to keep it down." The door slammed behind him, and I was left with the echo of his words and the hollow ache of being a stranger in my own home. I walked slowly to Richard's chair and sank into it. Outside, normal families carried on, neighbors watering gardens, children riding bikes, couples walking their dogs, ordinary love unfolding in ordinary ways. My phone buzzed again. Another text from Madison Mom. "Can you cover the catering deposit for next month? It's only $2,000. Dad's insurance should be enough. You're the best." Only $2,000, as if Richard's hard-earned insurance, already drained by medical bills and Ethan's failed ventures, were some bottomless well to tap into. As if my old age, my security, my dignity could be measured out in installments for someone else's happiness. I stared at the message until the letters blurred. And then, for the first time in 34 years of motherhood, I pressed delete. No reply. But even as I did, a certainty settled over me. Silence alone wasn't enough, because silence had been my prison for too long. If they believed I existed only to provide, then it was time they learned what life looked like when that provision disappeared. The next morning felt different, as if the air itself had shifted overnight. I woke to the sound of waves crashing against the shore, sharper, more purposeful than before. For the first time in months, I had slept through the night without waking in a panic about bills or obligations. Maybe it was that small act of deleting Madison's text, or maybe it was Richard's memory reminding me from somewhere unseen, "Helen, you're stronger than you think." By 7 a.m., I was dressed, coffee brewed, and my plan already forming. My first call was to the credit card company. My voice trembled at first, but then steadied as I explained. "I need to report unauthorized charges. My daughter has been using my account without permission." The woman on the other end spoke gently, almost as if she understood the weight of every word. She confirmed they would freeze the card immediately, dispute the charges, and begin an investigation. "Just so you're aware, ma'am," she added carefully, "if these are determined fraudulent, it could lead to criminal charges." I took a deep breath and said, "I understand." And I did, for the first time. I truly did. Next was the bank. Ethan had been an authorized user on my checking account for 2 years, a convenience that had turned into yet another chain around my neck. "I need to remove someone from my account," I told the banker firmly. Within minutes, his access was gone. By noon, the debit card he depended on would be nothing more than a piece of plastic. I could almost picture his expression when it was declined. And for once, the thought didn't fill me with guilt, it filled me with relief. My third call was to my lawyer, Laura Benton. She had handled Richard's estate after his passing. A sharp woman in her 50s with no patience for excuses. Helen, she said warmly when she picked up. It's been too long. What's going on? I swallowed hard. Laura, I need to revise my will, and I need to discuss my options about unauthorized credit card use. Her voice shifted, serious now. I can see you this afternoon. Just like that, my reckoning had a date and time. I sat in the car outside Riverside Elementary before the meeting, watching parents hurry their children inside with lunchboxes and backpacks. I had taught here for 32 years, shaping young lives, instilling values of honesty and kindness, and yet my own children, the ones I had sacrificed the most for, had chosen to strip me of dignity piece by piece. My phone rang, jolting me from my thoughts. Madison's name lit up the screen. I ignored it. It rang again and again. On the fourth call, I answered. Mom, thank God, she cried. Something's wrong with your credit card. The florist called payment didn't go through. The venue needs their deposit by Friday. What's happening? Her panic was thick, but I heard no apology, only fear of losing what she wanted. My voice was calm. The card has been frozen. What? Why, Mom? The wedding is in 6 weeks. We'll lose everything if you don't fix this. I'm aware of the timeline. Madison. She shifted to the voice I remembered from her teenage years, that high-pitched pleading tone she used whenever she wanted a new phone or concert tickets. Mom, please, whatever's wrong with the card, just tell them it's okay. These are legitimate charges. Are they? I asked quietly, because I don't recall authorizing $17,000 in wedding expenses. There was silence. Then a weak defense. You said I could use the card for emergencies. Your wedding, I said, is not my emergency. Your happiness is not my financial obligation. The words shocked even me. They came out like steel, unbending and final. Her breath caught on the other end. You're being unreasonable. This is my wedding. Don't you want me to be happy? That sentence, the one that had governed my life for 34 years, hung in the air like a curse. Don't you want me to be happy? I clenched my fist and answered, I want you to pay for your own wedding, like adults do. Then I hung up. The phone buzzed again, but I turned it off. By mid-morning, I was at the hardware store, buying new locks for the front and back doors. The clerk, an older man with kind eyes, helped me load them into the cart. Changing locks is easier than most folks think, he said conversationally. YouTube's got videos for everything these days. I smiled faintly. He had no idea how symbolic those locks would be. When I returned home, Ethan's car was already in the driveway. I walked into the house to find Rebecca, his girlfriend, blending a smoothie in my kitchen as if she lived there. Crystals and sage cluttered the counter, the air heavy with smoke that stung my eyes. Ethan sat at the table scrolling his phone. Mom, finally, he said without looking up. Something's wrong with my debit card. And Madison's been calling all morning. She says you're ruining the wedding. I set my purse down slowly. The card was declined because I removed your access, and I'm aware of Madison's situation. Rebecca turned with a startled laugh. Helen, are you okay? Jerry thought maybe you'd had a stroke, making these weird financial decisions. Weird financial decisions, from the mouth of a 26-year-old woman who contributed nothing but opinions. I inhaled slowly, then said with deliberate calm, Rebecca, I need you to collect your things and leave. You don't live here. Her smile faltered. What? Why? Because this is my home, not yours. Ethan finally looked up, eyes narrowing. Mom, stop. You're embarrassing yourself. Rebecca's welcome here. Not anymore, I said, my voice steady as the tide outside my window. This is my house, and the rules have changed. Ethan shot up from his chair so quickly the smoothie nearly spilled out of Rebecca's hand. His jaw clenched in that familiar stubborn way I had seen since he was a teenager. "Mom, you can't be serious. Over a few charges, you're ready to kick us out." His words cut sharp, but I noticed he never said her charges. No, he lumped himself with his sister, as if the theft belonged to me for refusing to tolerate it. I folded my arms, forcing my voice to remain calm. "This isn't about a few charges, Ethan. This is about boundaries. Your sister took thousands without asking. You've been living here rent-free for half a year. And Rebecca," I turned to her, "you treat this home like it's your personal retreat. Enough is enough." Rebecca set the blender down, her cheeks flushed. "Helen, you're overreacting. Families help each other. Madison's wedding is important. Shouldn't you want to be part of it?" Her words stung, not because they were true, but because they revealed how twisted the narrative had become. I was no longer the victim of theft, I was the villain for daring to object. I met her gaze evenly. Being part of it doesn't mean financing it at the expense of my future. Ethan's tone turned sharper. "So what? You'd rather see your daughter humiliated. You'd rather destroy her big day than help her out? God, you're unbelievable." Something inside me snapped. For years, I had tolerated tantrums, manipulations, guilt trips, all in the name of love. But now, standing in my own kitchen with my son belittling me, I realized I was done. "No, Ethan," I said firmly. "What's unbelievable is that you think my role as your mother is to bankroll your lives forever. I raised you. I gave you everything I could. And now it's time for you to stand on your own." Rebecca glanced at Ethan, clearly expecting him to intervene. He threw up his hands. "Fine. If Rebecca leaves, I'll leave too. But don't think we'll come crawling back when you realize you've pushed away the only people who love you." The words hit me like a punch. The only people who love you. It was a cruel weapon, aimed straight at my deepest fear of being alone. My breath caught, but I steadied myself. Love that depends on money isn't love. "Ethan, if you walk out that door, that's your choice. But don't confuse leaving with punishment. It might just be freedom for both of us." For the first time in years, I saw a flicker of uncertainty in his eyes. He wasn't prepared for this version of me, the mother who no longer begged for scraps of affection. He muttered something under his breath, grabbed Rebecca's yoga mat, and stormed toward the door. She followed silently, her usual smugness replaced by unease. The slam of the front door echoed through the house. I stood alone in the kitchen, the scent of sage still heavy in the air, but instead of suffocating, the silence felt clean, lighter, like a window had finally opened. I brewed myself a fresh cup of coffee, savoring each step of the ritual. Every movement reminded me I was reclaiming something they had chipped away for years: control over my own life. Minutes later, my phone lit up again. "Madison." I didn't answer. Instead, I walked through the house, gathering Ethan's leftover belongings, his scattered shoes, the jacket draped over a chair, the pile of laundry he never bothered to wash. I carried them to the guest room and shut the door. If he wanted them, he'd have to knock like a visitor, because that's what he was now. By afternoon, the locks were changed. The satisfying click of the new deadbolt was more than just security, it was closure. For years, my home had been treated as a revolving door for their needs, their failures, their crises. Now, it was mine again, Richard's and mine. Later that evening, the phone rang once more. This time I answered. Madison's voice was frantic. "Mom, what's going on? Ethan says you've lost your mind. He said you're locking him out and cutting off the accounts. Please, tell me he's exaggerating." "He's not," I replied simply. She went silent, then lowered her voice. "Mom, listen to me. If you don't fix this, the wedding is ruined. Do you really want that on your conscience? Everyone will know it was your fault." Guilt, always guilt. But something had shifted in me. I no longer felt cornered by her threats. "Madison," I said quietly, "the only thing on my conscience is how long I allowed this to continue. If your wedding falls apart, it's because you planned something you couldn't afford. That's not my responsibility." Her gasp crackled through the line. "You've changed. This isn't you." "No," I said, and for the first time in years, I smiled. "This is me. The me you forgot existed." Then I hung up. The sun was setting over the water, streaking the sky in pink and gold. For the first time since Richard's death, the house felt like mine again. And as the locks clicked into place, I knew the real battle was only beginning. But this time, I was ready. The following afternoon, I walked into Laura Benton's office with a folder tucked under my arm. Inside were copies of my bank statements, the credit card charges, and even the text messages from Madison. My hands shook slightly as I placed them on her polished desk, but my voice was steady. For the first time in years, I wasn't here to smooth things over. I was here to draw lines. Laura adjusted her glasses and scanned the paperwork, her expression tightening as she read. "Helen," she said after a long silence, "this isn't just a misunderstanding. This could qualify as financial elder abuse." The words landed heavy, but not surprising. Deep down, I'd known it. Still, hearing it said out loud gave it a sharp edge. "I don't want my children arrested," I replied quickly, almost reflexively. "I just want it to stop. I want them to understand there are consequences." Laura nodded slowly. "Then we'll focus on protection your assets, your home, your future. Tell me what you want." I took a breath. "I want to revise my will. Right now, everything is split evenly between Madison and Ethan. The house, the savings, what's left of Richard's insurance. I want to change that." Laura leaned forward, her pen poised. "How?" "The house goes to charity," I said, surprising myself with how certain I felt. "Half my assets to organizations I care about, the Literacy Foundation where I used to volunteer, the animal shelter, maybe something for seniors without families. Whatever remains, Madison and Ethan can split, but only after they've repaid what they've taken from me." Laura scribbled notes, her sharp eyes meeting mine. "And the executor?" "Not them," I said firmly. "You, if you're willing." Her lips curved into the smallest smile. "I'd be honored." For the next hour, we worked through the details. She explained how to protect my accounts from unauthorized access, how to ensure no one could coerce me into signing papers again. My stomach twisted when she asked, "Do you know Madison forged your name on a secondary mortgage application last year?" I froze, heat rising to my face. "What?" She pushed the document across the desk. "I pulled a property report before our meeting, just to be safe. Madison's signature is on it, but so is yours, supposedly. I doubt you signed this." I stared at the page, my name, scrawled in handwriting close enough to fool a bank, but not me. My daughter had gone beyond using my credit card. She had risked my entire home, Richard's, and my sanctuary to fund her dream. The betrayal cut so deep I felt dizzy. "She could have cost me the house," I whispered. Laura's voice softened. "You're lucky the loan didn't go through. There were red flags, so the bank froze it. But Helen, you need to understand how far this has escalated." I nodded, tears pricking the corners of my eyes. "I do. And I'm done pretending it's not serious." When I left Laura's office, the late afternoon sun was setting behind the city skyline, casting long shadows across the street. I should have felt crushed by what I'd learned, but instead there was a strange clarity in my chest. The truth was brutal, but it was also freeing. My children weren't just careless, they were willing to gamble with my life for their convenience. And now I knew exactly what I was up against. Back at home, the house felt quiet, stripped of Ethan's clutter and Rebecca's incense. I sat in Richard's chair and let the sound of the ocean seep in through the windows. For years, I'd told myself that silence meant abandonment, but now silence felt like strength. My phone buzzed on the coffee table. "Ethan." I let it ring, then watched as a voicemail notification appeared. His voice crackled through the speaker. "Mom, this has gone too far. Madison's freaking out. Daniel's asking questions. You're tearing this family apart over money." over money, as if the only thing at stake was a number on a statement, as if the lies, the exclusions, the forged signature weren't wounds that went deeper than dollars ever could. I deleted the message without listening to the end. For the first time, their voices didn't feel like commands. They felt like noise, background static in a life I was finally reclaiming. Later that night, Grace, my neighbor from 2 houses down, knocked on my door. She stood there with a casserole dish, smiling shyly. "I saw a bit of commotion earlier," she said gently. "Thought you might need some company." I almost told her no. For so long, I had been used to carrying everything alone. But then I caught myself. This was different. Grace wasn't asking for anything, she was offering. "Come in," I said, stepping aside. I was just opening a bottle of wine. As we sat at the table, sharing lasagna and quiet conversation, I felt something stir I hadn't felt in years. Connection. Not the kind that drained, but the kind that filled. And for the first time since Richard's death, I realized I wasn't just fighting to reclaim my life. I was fighting to rediscover it. 3 days passed before the siege truly began. Until then, the house was quiet, the ocean outside steady, as if holding its breath with me. I filled the silence with little routines, watering Richard's roses, reading on the porch, morning walks with Grace. For the first time in years, I was learning what it meant to exist without constant demands tugging at me. But peace, I knew, never lasted long when Madison and Ethan wanted something. It started early Thursday morning. I opened the curtains to find Madison's car parked in the driveway. She was sitting on the porch steps, still in yesterday's clothes, mascara streaked down her cheeks. When I finally opened the door, coffee in hand, she jumped up like a scolded child. "Mom, we need to talk," she said hoarsely. "I've been here since 5 a.m." "Good morning, Madison," I replied evenly. "You look exhausted." Her face crumpled. "I haven't slept. I can't eat. The wedding is ruined. And I don't understand why you're doing this to me." "I'm not doing anything to you," I said calmly. "I'm simply not doing things for you anymore." She burst into fresh tears. "The venue canceled. They called yesterday when the payment didn't go through. 2 years of planning. Mom gone. Do you realize what you've done?" I studied her face, really studied it. At 31, she still had the same ability to make herself look like a wounded child when she wanted something. I thought of her fiancé, Daniel, the decent young man who probably had no idea how skilled Madison was at manipulation. "What does Daniel think about all this?" I asked. Her eyes darted away. "He doesn't know," she admitted quickly. "I haven't told him about the money problems. He thinks everything's paid for." Then her voice sharpened. "Mom, please, I'm begging you, just this once, help me fix this." That phrase, "just this once," was the same line she had used every time she needed a bailout. Just this once for tuition. Just this once for a deposit. Just this once for another emergency. I leaned against the porch railing. "When did you decide I wasn't family enough to invite to your engagement dinner?" She blinked, clearly caught off guard. "What? That's not what this is about." "It is," I said. "When did you and Daniel decide that I wasn't worth including?" Her lips pressed tight. "It wasn't like that. It was just immediate family. His parents, his sister. I am your immediate family. Madison, I'm your mother." She flinched at the words, then snapped. "Fine. I should have asked before using the card. I'm sorry. But the damage is done now, and we can fix it if you'll just—" "No." The word cut the air clean, sharp as glass. She stared at me, shocked. "What do you mean, no?" "I mean," I said slowly, "I'm not fixing your problems anymore. I'm not paying for your choices anymore. I'm not being treated like an ATM with a house attached." Her tears turned hot and angry. "So what? You're just going to abandon me, let my wedding be ruined, because you're having some late-life crisis." "I'm 64, Madison. If anything, this isn't a crisis, it's an awakening." For a moment, we just stood there, the waves crashing behind me, her sobs jagged and raw. Then her voice dropped low, venomous. "You're a lonely old widow, Mom. You're driving away the only people who care about you. You'll die alone, and it'll be your own fault." The cruelty of it took my breath away. She knew Richard's death was still the deepest wound in me, and she used it like a knife. For years, that fear had kept me compliant, but now it only steeled my resolve. "Goodbye, Madison," I said, stepping back inside. "Mom, wait," she cried. "I didn't mean that. I'm just scared, so please." But I closed the door and turned the deadbolt. Her fists pounded against it, alternating between apologies and fresh threats. Before finally retreating to her car, I watched from the window as she sat there for 20 minutes, probably calling Ethan or anyone else who could pressure me. By noon, reinforcements arrived. First was Ethan's ex-wife, Jennifer, a woman I had always liked. Despite everything, she stood awkwardly on my porch. "Hi, Helen. Ethan asked me to come talk to you. He says there's a family emergency." "There's no emergency," I said flatly. "There are consequences." I invited her in, poured coffee, and told her the truth. The credit card charges, the exclusions, the way they had been draining me for years. Her expression shifted from disbelief to discomfort. "I had no idea," she admitted. "Ethan always said you were happy to help." "I was," I said softly, past tense. She sighed, clearly regretting her involvement. "I'll talk to him," she murmured before leaving. Not long after, the doorbell rang again. This time it was Daniel, holding his keys awkwardly in his hand. His expression was troubled, but sincere. "Mrs. Crawford," he said, "I hope you don't mind me coming. Madison told me about the money situation, and I wanted to apologize." I blinked. "Apologize for what?" "I didn't know," he said earnestly. "She told me you'd offered to help, that the wedding was your gift. If I'd known she was charging things without permission, I never would have allowed it." For the first time in days, something eased inside me. Here was a man willing to take responsibility, even when it wasn't truly his fault. I stepped aside. "Come in, Daniel. Let's talk." And as we sat down together at my kitchen table, the same table where Richard and I had once planned our lives, I felt the tide finally beginning to turn. Daniel sat across from me at the kitchen table, his hands folded tightly, as though bracing for impact. For a long moment he said nothing, just stared at the credit card statement I'd slid across the wood. His brow furrowed deeper with every line item: flowers, catering, deposits, money siphoned away in my name. Finally, he exhaled. "She told me everything was covered, that you'd offered to help." I believed her. I poured him a cup of coffee and pushed it toward him. "She didn't ask. She didn't tell me. She just took. And when I questioned it, she shut me out of her life, just as she did with that engagement dinner." His eyes lifted sharply. "Engagement dinner. She said you declined the invitation, that you weren't feeling well." I let out a bitter laugh. "Declined, Daniel? I wasn't even invited. I found out from Ethan. After the fact, she rewrote the story so I looked like the one who didn't care." Daniel rubbed his forehead, shoulders sagging. "God, that explains so much. I kept wondering why you seemed so distant that night. Why Madison acted cagey when I asked about you." He leaned back, staring at the ceiling. "I love her, Helen, but the lying, it keeps piling up." There was such raw honesty in his voice that I felt a flicker of hope for him. If not for their relationship, loving someone doesn't mean excusing everything they do, I said softly. Richard taught me that, and I ignored it for years with Madison and Ethan. Before he could respond, my phone buzzed on the counter. "Ethan again." I ignored it. Daniel glanced at the screen, and then at me. "She's going to be furious when she finds out I came here." "I imagine she already suspects," I said, "but you deserve to know the truth. If you build a marriage on secrets, it won't last." He nodded slowly. "Taking a sip of coffee. I need to think about things. Thank you for being honest with me." When he left, I felt both heavier and lighter. He was a good man, but whether he had the strength to withstand Madison's manipulations was something only time would answer. That evening, Grace knocked on my door again, carrying a bottle of wine and a bag of Chinese takeout. She set them on the counter with a smile. Rough day. Educational, I admitted. Filling 2 glasses, Daniel came by. He knows the truth now, sa. Grace raised her brows. And he's starting to see who Madison really is. We ate together at the table, chopsticks clinking softly, the smell of sesame oil filling the kitchen. I told her everything: the confrontation with Madison on the porch, Jennifer's awkward visit, Daniel's shock. Grace listened without interruption, nodding occasionally, her expression a mix of sympathy and quiet strength. When I finished, she leaned back in her chair. You're doing something most people never have the courage to do, Helen. You're drawing boundaries. Of course they're fighting it. They've built their lives around your compliance. I sighed, staring into my wine. It's exhausting. I keep waiting for the guilt to crush me. It will try, she said gently, but the relief will grow stronger. Trust me. Her certainty steadied me in a way I hadn't expected. For years, my friendships had dwindled to acquaintances and polite waves across the street. Now, here was someone who saw me clearly, not as a provider, but as a person. The next morning, the battle escalated. Zoe, I still caught myself thinking of her as Zoe. Though she was, Madison pounded on my front door at dawn, her eyes wild. Ethan stood beside her, arms crossed like a soldier. Mom, this has gone far enough, Madison cried. You've embarrassed me. Daniel's asking questions. The wedding is hanging by a thread. You have to fix this. Bitch then. No, so, I said simply. Ethan stepped forward, his voice sharp. You're tearing this family apart. You think you're strong now, but you'll regret this when you're alone. We've already talked to Jennifer, and she agrees you're not thinking straight. Maybe it's time we considered legal action. Legal action, I repeated, almost amused. We could have you declared incompetent, he said flatly. Then someone else would manage your finances. Someone who isn't making rash decisions. For a moment, the audacity stole my breath. Then, unexpectedly, I laughed. Go ahead, Ethan. Try. Laura Benton has every detail of my decisions documented. If you want to drag me into court, be prepared to see just how competent I really am. Madison's mouth fell open. Ethan flushed with anger. This isn't over, he spat. No, I said calmly, looking each of them in the eye. It's just beginning. They stormed off, slamming the gate behind them. The sound echoed against the sea breeze. But instead of fear, I felt something else surge through me. Freedom. For the first time in decades, I wasn't the one trapped. They were their threats, exposed as empty, their control unraveling. That night, Grace and I sat on the porch, watching the sunset bleed into the ocean. She poured another glass of wine and asked, How do you feel? Like I'm standing on a cliff, I admitted, terrified, but also free. She smiled knowingly. The terrified part will fade. The free part will only grow stronger. And as the last light faded from the horizon, I believed her. 3 weeks slipped by, quieter than I could have imagined. No frantic phone calls about overdue bills. No slamming doors from Ethan. No texts demanding grocery runs or last-minute deposits. For the first time in years, I could hear the ocean from my porch without someone else's voice drowning it out. Grace and I had fallen into a routine: morning walks, shared meals, evenings spent laughing over books and memories. It felt like reclaiming not just my house, but my life. Then, on a humid Tuesday morning, a car I recognized but hadn't seen in weeks pulled into my driveway. Daniel stepped out, looking thinner, older somehow, his eyes shadowed by exhaustion. He carried an envelope in his hand, and when I opened the door, he didn't waste time on pleasantries. Mrs. Crawford, he said quietly, Do you have a few minutes? I led him to the back patio, where Richard's roses were finally blooming again. He sat heavily, placing the envelope on the table between us. "The wedding's off," he said flatly. I set down my glass of iced tea carefully. "I'm sorry to hear that." He studied me, as if testing my sincerity. "Are you?" I thought about it honestly. "I'm sorry for your pain, but I'm not sorry you saw Madison's true colors before it was too late." His jaw tightened, then eased. "That's what I thought you'd say." He pushed the envelope toward me. "This is for you, and—" Inside was a cashier's check for $8,500, half of the charges Madison had stolen. "Daniel, I can't accept this," I said immediately. "Yeah, you can," he replied. "That money went toward deposits and catering. I benefited from it, even if I didn't know. It's my responsibility to give back what I can." For a moment, I saw in him the very thing I'd spent years hoping for from my own children: accountability, respect. "What did Madison say when you told her?" I asked softly. He laughed, a bitter sound. "She doesn't know I'm here." When I suggested postponing the wedding, maybe counseling to sort through the financial mess, she said I was being manipulated by you, that you were jealous of her happiness. The words should have hurt, but they didn't. They rolled off like seawater, familiar and predictable. "And what did you say?" I asked. "I told her if she couldn't see how she'd treated you, maybe we weren't ready to get married." His voice cracked slightly, but there was relief in it too. "She packed her bags that night, went to stay with an old college friend." I nodded, folding the envelope closed. "You deserve better, Daniel. Don't forget that." When he left, the roses swayed in the salty breeze, and I realized something. Sometimes family isn't the people you raise, but the people who choose respect without being asked. Later that evening, just as the sun dipped low, headlights flared in the driveway again. Madison stepped out, hair pulled back messily, clothes wrinkled, shadows under her eyes. Beside her was another woman, likely the college roommate. Madison stood at the base of the porch steps, clutching her phone like a lifeline. "Mom, we need to talk." "Good evening, Madison," I said evenly. She shifted, restless. "Daniel's gone. The wedding's canceled. I have nowhere to go. I need to come home." There it was, the moment I'd anticipated since I set those boundaries. She wasn't here because she'd changed. She was here because everything else had collapsed. "No," I said gently but firmly. Her eyes widened, brimming with fresh tears. "What do you mean, no? This is my home too." "This stopped being your home when you decided I wasn't family enough to include in your life," I replied. She looked at me like I'd struck her. I said I was sorry. "Isn't that enough?" I took a slow breath. "Sorry for what? Sorry you got caught, or sorry you hurt me?" She froze, clearly confused by the distinction. "I don't know what you want me to say." "I want you to understand the difference between regretting consequences and regretting choices," I said. "Until you do, we can't move forward." Shh. Her roommate shifted uncomfortably. "Maybe I should wait in the car," she murmured. "Yes," I agreed. "You should." Madison's tears turned to anger. "So you'd really let your own daughter be homeless?" "You're not homeless," I said calmly. "You're 31 years old, with a degree and a job. You have options, you just don't like them." She shook her head, almost disbelieving. "You've changed. You're cruel now." "No," I corrected softly. "I finally stopped being cruel to myself." Her face twisted, but for the first time, she had no words. She turned, stormed to the car, and slammed the door. The taillights faded down the street, leaving only the sound of waves and the faint scent of roses. I stood on the porch, a long time after she left, the air cool against my skin. For years I had feared this exact moment: being cut off, being rejected, being called cruel by the people I loved most. But as the quiet settled, I realized something astonishing. I felt peace. Not victory, not triumph, just peace. And maybe that was the beginning of everything I'd been missing. I used to believe that becoming a good mother meant sacrificing everything: my time, my money, even my dignity. I thought if I kept giving, eventually they would see me, appreciate me, maybe even love me for who I was. But the truth is, love that only exists when you're useful isn't love at all. It's dependency dressed up as devotion. When Madison drove away that night, leaving only the echo of her anger behind, I sat on the porch and listened to the ocean. For the first time in decades, I wasn't terrified of silence. I wasn't waiting for the phone to ring or the door to slam. I wasn't bracing myself for another request disguised as an emergency. The quiet wasn't abandonment anymore, it was freedom. Over the next weeks, I poured myself into the things I had forgotten I loved: gardening, reading, volunteering at the literacy center again. Grace became more than a neighbor, she became a friend. We shared meals, laughter, even tears over losses we both carried. For once, I was surrounded by people who gave as much as they received, who saw me not as a wallet or a safety net, but as a woman with value beyond what I could provide. And slowly, the guilt that had ruled me began to fade. In its place grew something stronger, something I hadn't felt since Richard was alive: peace. Not the fragile peace that depends on keeping everyone else happy, but the deep peace that comes from finally honoring yourself. If there's one thing I've learned through all of this, it's that boundaries don't destroy families. They reveal the truth of them. And sometimes, the most loving thing you can do is say no, not out of cruelty, but out of self-respect. Because if the people you love only stay when you're useful, then losing them isn't really a loss at all. So, to anyone listening who feels trapped in that same cycle of giving until there's nothing left, hear me when I say this: you are worth more than what you can provide. You are worth more than your silence, more than your sacrifices. You deserve to be loved for who you are, not for what you give. And that's the story of how I stopped being an ATM with a house attached and started being Helen again, just Helen. And that was enough. Before you go, make sure you hit that subscribe button and share this video with someone who needs to hear it. And tell me in the comments, have you ever had to draw a line with someone you love? I'd love to hear your stories. Because in the end, the greatest revenge isn't anger or punishment. It's living a life that finally belongs to you.